Hey YouTube, my bad. Aiden / just Aiden here to talk to you today about a different trombone. Not one that I've talked about ever. I've wanted to talk about this one for a while. Long story short, it's hard to bring to my house, and I just haven't had the chance to bring it back and talk to you guys about it. So this is another bass trombone. Eventually, I will talk about my new slide on my my normal bass. Let's talk about this different trombone for a little bit. This is the horn I use at work. I'm borrowing it from a friend long term, and I basically have to leave it there most of the time because another guy was also using it. And now he bought his own trombone, so I can bring this home whenever I want, kind of, clean it and oil it and stuff, and maybe get some things fixed. This is a Conn 112H bass trombone from, who knows, I would assume late 90s or something. There's no way to tell with these things. They're all basically the same. It's definitely from after a certain point, which would be, I don't know, early 90s or something. The timeline on these is very confused and not very well documented. The Conn 100 series instruments, of which this is a member, were developed, at least in part, by Larry Minnick, the famous Los Angeles repairman. He's the guy who did the conversion on my Holton TR-180. He put an open wrap on it and changed the levers and stuff. And I also had a Bach 50B2 with Larry Minnick valve levers, right? I think it was. I actually can't remember now. He was known for a lot of stuff. He developed the Conn 100H, which is a 500 bore small tenor. Those are very good. The good ones are good anyway. Kind of a Conn 6H, but with some stuff changed about the design. And then the Conn 110 or 110H, yes, there we go, 110H, 110H, which is a single valve bass trombone. The 111H, which is a dependent bass trombone. The 112, independent. The 113, I guess, which is apparently a prototype for another dependent instrument. The 100 series basses all have a 10-inch bell, red brass, stolen from the Benj 290. Not really stolen, they stopped making the Benj and they just started putting the bells on these. I think they all have the same slide, which is a lightweight yellow brass entirely slide, single bore, a little bit narrower like Conn slides usually are. They all have these Generation 2 rotors, which are awesome, reverse tuning slides. And I think the bell throat, since it's from the 290, is a little larger than anything else Conn makes. And the valve setup on these is pretty much stolen straight from the Benj 290. It's a little different, I think, especially on this side, but not too different. And I'm not really sure why they developed the basses. I think they just wanted a more modern instrument. At that time, they were not making anything really spectacular. The Conn 83H, I think, may have still been in production, but I don't even know if it was around. They basically had nothing that had not been designed in like the 1960s or 70s. So it was time for Conn to get some new stuff. This is what came out. And people don't really know about these because I think they've kind of been relegated to school instruments. Kind of like the Holton TR-181, which I don't like at all. Has very similar specs to this in a lot of ways. It's cheap for the company to produce. It doesn't cost a lot for the customer to buy. They have similar specs, a 10-inch red brass bell, for instance, single bore, independent valves. Kind of a lower end independent bass trombone, and that's kind of what this is. And people don't know about them because now there's the new Generation 2 Conn 62Hs, etc. They're all better than these in a lot of ways. So this is seen as like the low-end instrument. Like, why would you get this when you can get the 62, a used instrument that costs a little bit, just a little bit more maybe. And I'm here to say that the 112H is actually, if you can find a cheap one, is a really good deal. I think it's a very good instrument, actually. This one's obviously seen a lot of stuff. It's been through a lot of things. The bell's kind of flattened out at the bell brace here. I have no paddle for my second valve. But otherwise, like, the slide is surprisingly good. The valves are just fine, a little noisy. They need new bumpers. All the slides move. I just put some stuff on them. This is actually a very good instrument. Let's go over the pros and cons of this instrument. So pros, for the work that I do, this thing is perfect. It's got a nice big sound in every dynamic. that lights up when you push it a little bit, so it doesn't just stay kind of woof monster mode. It actually lights up and gets some focus to it. And so you can actually get that through an ensemble. People can actually hear, oh hey, it's bass trombone. This horn is not very good at that. It kind of remains nice and dark and centered all the way through the dynamic range, which is great for the stuff that I do with it. But for like a big band setting, kind of the outdoor setting that I use this in, I don't really want to work that hard. This lets me work a lot less hard. Another pro is the valves. Obviously, pretty open. Very open. Like they're not as open as my Thayers, obviously, or some other fancy greenhouse or something, but they're just fine for the work I need to do. I like the way that they respond down there. It's not crazy open. I can't just not think about anything and just annihilate a low C like I can with these. I do have to change things just a little bit, be a little more focused, but it's not like some other vintage horns that I've had in the past. They're basically not impossible to play, but not possible to play like certain dynamic. The low C would just disappear, unlike my old 50 B2s, etc. This horn does not have any of those problems. It's still a modern bass trombone, modern size valves, no issue there at all. It's got a nice articulation. It's very easy to play, it's very light. I'm surprised. It does have a light slide, so that contributes some to that. But this big old, pretty heavy red brass belts, 10 inches, should not really help that out, and it does not get in the way at all. I like this horn, but it does have a much heavier articulation, especially with this bell, and it's kind of hard to get that same very light, easy feeling. This does have a single bore slide. I do have to play it differently kind of all around than this horn. My articulation is just a little bit different, but it gives me no issues. I do have to switch between these, and I have to like change things. I can't just approach them the same, but that's not a big deal at all. What's another pro? Oh, I can use my usual mouthpiece, which is not super common, I find. My gray black 1G, .312, number 2 throat. Lots of things to say there. Obviously works really well in my Bach. I'm not surprised. It's kind of built for that. On a lot of Conn's, other instruments with single bore slides and stuff, it usually loses a lot of response and the sound isn't that great. On this horn, I kind of don't give up anything. I've had no reason to put in a different mouthpiece just for work, which I really don't want to do. I want to use this all the time. And this horn has no problems with that. It's also not super heavy. It's pretty well balanced, and it's just not a greatly heavy trombone. And I think it's probably in the medium class bass trombone weights. Obviously my horn is in the heavy class, it's super heavy. Not fun to just like hold up for a long time. This is not bad at all. Let's talk about some of the cons. I might have some more pros, I can't remember them right now. Cons, the ergonomics on the 112H are trash. This is the worst ergonomic instrument that I think I've ever had in my hands. And I've had a lot. I've had a King Duo Gravis with the 2 thumb valves. That was better than this in a lot of ways. The biggest issue is that you can see how far away from the brace this F paddle is. Now think about how you hold a trombone. You have your hand like this, and your thumb kind of wants to be right here. Well, this F paddle is way over here, which gives you, it's just like the worst possible design. If you can see on this F paddle is pretty much right next to the brace. It's just like an inch away. So it's very comfortable. The hand is kind of in a natural position. I don't know why they designed it like this, and I have a feeling they just didn't design it. They slapped on a lever and went, it's good, we're done. It's just a horrible design, and without this Yamaha strap, it is unplayable. I can barely hold this up for like a couple minutes without dying. And that's just, it's just lazy to leave something like this on here, not think about it at all, and just sell it. Obviously, I'm missing the paddle for this, and actually that's not the worst part about this. It's actually pretty comfortable. It's in a pretty good spot. I just bent it to a better place. And of course, with the Yamaha strap, this horn is definitely playable, and it's actually not uncomfortable, this strap. It's just, I shouldn't have to use a strap like this to play an instrument. this light and this bounce. I really wish I didn't have to, but that's how it is. That's a terrible design. I could bend this, but I'm afraid I would break it because I've already bent it a bunch to get it this spot where it's at. Another downside is the valve legato. These are rotors. They're not vented. They're not fancy at all, and I really hate playing valve legato. Right now they feel okay, but I can tell if I pick this up and play the same thing, it would just feel a lot better. I would have better connections between the notes, less of the whip between the notes. Also, the springs on these are pretty much shot, so they don't return very fast. That's not really a problem with the horn. That's just kind of an age thing. I can get them replaced. And that's just a rotor thing. It's not something I can really complain about heavily because all rotors are going to be like that, including modern, fancy, green hose, etc. They're going to play with that same whip, and it's not going to have the same valve legato that I'm used to. Another big downside is this bell. I like how it sounds, even though it's super messed up and it's flattened right here and stuff. I have no problems with it. I get pretty good feedback from this bell, but it's about an inch closer to your face than a normal horn is. I'm not even sure if I can show you this, but if I line these up, you can see how this bell is like an inch farther away from the face than this horn is. And you're like, okay, who cares? But that's what you kind of look at if you're standing there, playing something. You go, I want to play third position on my other horns, so like right here before the bell, something like this. On this horn, it's actually just a little bit past the bell. And that is just super confusing. Of course, like 80% of the time, I'm just going with muscle memory. I'm not thinking about it at all. But sometimes I'll stand there and be playing, and I'll play a C above the staff, and I go, whoa, why am I so sharp? Like, I'm not sharp on any other notes, and I go, oh yeah, this bell's in a different place. So it shouldn't matter, but it's one of those things that ends up mattering. I guess if you're the perfect player, you never look at your bell, you never even think about it, you're not going to have a problem because it's going to be pretty much the same. But the fact that it's just like an inch, it's like a really long distance. I had the same problem on my Holton TR-180. It was in the same place, the same 10-inch bell setup. It was a lot closer to you. And so when I went to box after that, I had a hard time going, oh wow, the bell's way farther away. It feels so far away. And of course, this being 10 inches instead of 9.5, you have a larger bell closer to you so you can see less. Whereas with this, 9.5 inch farther away, it feels like a tenor trombone after playing that. It's very strange. So in conclusion, I don't think I left too much out about this instrument. If you're looking for a deal on an independent bass trombone that plays well, it works well, minus ergonomics, if you get a strap, it's okay. In pretty much every department, this is a totally usable trombone. I would get a 112H. I actually almost bought one for $1,200. Very low price for an American-made dual rotor bass trombone in good shape. That you basically can't find an instrument like that. And I would absolutely get a 112H any day of the week, because if you don't like it, you can sell it for the same amount of money and get something else. Highly recommended. If you need a horn for a cheap price and you find one, this is a good one to get. See you guys next time.